Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday. Thank you for joining us for our MASSP webinar on the public school retirement system with our friends from Williams and Company. We have Joshua Williams with us today. He's going to be kind of taking you through the ins and outs of the retirement system. So excited to have Josh with us today. Excited to have you all. Hopefully you are staying warm and you are not in a corner of the state still getting pounded with snow on March 19th. As you are coming onto the webinar, we always like to start these sessions just kind of finding out and letting our guests know who is joining us today. So I'd really appreciate it if you can hop in the chat, drop your name, your role, your school, and just maybe a hope or a want or a question that you're going to have for Josh. I know talking about retirement brings up a lot of questions. I just met with Josh a couple weeks ago to talk about my own financial planning that Josh handles for me and answered a bunch of questions for me. So he probably wished I would have waited to just do this webinar with him. I could have saved you a meeting, Josh. So, but would love to have you hop on the chat, introduce yourself so Josh can see who is with us. While you are doing that, I'm going to just cover a couple of housekeeping items for us. Just remember, this is a webinar, but we do want to make sure we get all your questions asked. So even though cameras are off, that sort of thing, use the Q&A system to drop in your questions. If you are thinking of a question, chances are somebody else is thinking it too. So go ahead and ask it. We can prioritize them by kind of having you upvote them as well. So if you see a question that you think is relevant, hit the thumbs up button. That'll help me kind of make sure we get those most popular questions asked. Just like you're doing right now, the chat is just going to be for sharing ideas, sharing comments. You found something interesting that Josh said, you can chime in on it. Others can see that. You just got to make sure that you have it set to everyone and not just the hosts and panelists. So Q&A is for the questions. Chat is for just sharing ideas and comments. We will get you a copy of Josh's slides or handouts or notes, as well as a copy of this recording. I usually get those sent out about 24 hours or so after the webinar is over. So you can look for those to come from me at some point tomorrow morning, most likely. Again, this is just our kind of generic disclaimer we have. I know it probably is more impactful by some of our legal webinars we do, but just remember, because we record this and you can watch this a week from now, month from now, year from now, some of the information that you see might be outdated by the time you watch it. So this information is accurate as of today, March 19th, 2026. So just be mindful of that. Otherwise, we've had a ton of webinars this year. You can check those out at massp.com/webinars. We have a couple others left still scheduled in April. So one is with our friends from MDHHS on vaping and some alternatives to suspension. And then we have our very popular legal survival guide update. It's a 2-day, 2 hours each day from 9 to 11 webinar workshop, if you will, with Kevin Sutton of Miller Johnson. So he's going to go through the updated legal survival guide, which is really that newer approach to that model student handbook with all your policies and your discipline information. We're going to cover that on April 28th and 29th. If you are an executive member, you get that for free. We are emailing you out a coupon code so you can attend that for free. Otherwise, there is a cost, but a really, really popular one, an important one to have you or your admin team sit in on. So that is all for me. I'm going to stop sharing. I'm going to turn over the Zoom controls here to Josh. Josh, thanks for being with us this morning. Excited
Absolutely.
to
Thank you.
Learn from you today. So it's all yours.
All right. Is that the pop up the?
All good.
All right. Appreciate it. Thanks again, Ryan. We always appreciate the partnership with MASSP. It's been a phenomenal partnership going in the past here, and we always look forward to EdCon. Hopefully, we see everybody on the presentation here at EdCon this year. I know that's always a phenomenal conference. We do a lot of conferences every year. We look at it and say that's probably one of the top run conferences in the state for public school administrators. So hats off to MASSP and Ryan and everybody that works on that conference as well. But today really wanted to dive into the state retirement system. I know there's a lot of questions that people may have in relation to how do my pension benefits work. We look at it and go, it's a very complex system. I know the working with a number of public school administrators from around the state, we hear questions, everything related from, what date can I retire to? Is my pension going to be affected by what's formerly known as the normal salary increase? And all the lawsuits that are stirring around what is includable and non-includable, final average compensation, and everything else, and leaves a lot of uncertainty out there on what it is that your pension benefit may be. But we're hoping to help clear some of that up, and also help you identify what system that you're in. There are a lot of different possibilities. If you talk to your payroll manager, they can probably commiserate. And I believe right now, if just based on the codes that the payroll manager has to type in for the state retirement system, there's 21 or 22 different categories of employee, just based on the time that they were hired in and the elections that they chose at that time of hiring in. So we encourage everybody to get as much information as they can, but know that getting the area we often see the most misinformation passed is that of when they're talking to colleagues, whether it be in the lounge or wherever it may be, and the not realizing that other people are in completely different systems than them, and the not realizing how many different systems there are out there inside of MPSERS makes it difficult to take recommendations from colleagues, because if they don't understand the system and all the different intricacies of it, oftentimes, while albeit it may be good information, good advice that they're providing, it also may not be applicable to your scenario. So we'd like to, today we're going to focus primarily just on the pension benefits. We do these presentations around the state. Many districts, some of your districts, we may have done them through the Michigan Association of Retired School Personnel. We do all their presentations, and we do kind of a 2-hour deep dive, diving into everything from the healthcare benefits at the time of what to elect, all the way through the paperwork and everything else that you're going to need when getting ready for retirement. Today, we want to focus on the pension benefits. We also do a number of presentations in PD days and staff meetings. If that's something that you wanted to take advantage of, let us know, and we're happy to do. We could do quick 15-minute overviews as well during PD days and staff meetings for staff to help provide that level of, I guess, personal development and see a curriculum while they're sitting there. So we're happy to help out there as well. So let us know if that's something you'd like. But today we're going to focus on the pension benefits and see if we can answer any questions that people may have in relation to their personal scenario if they'd like to ask them in the chat. So, all right, see if I can. All right, so when we look at how many different state retirement scenarios there really are, we start to break it down, and everybody's probably familiar with the 3 core ones. You have your basic, MIP, and pension plus. Right now, the where it gets difficult is all of these break out into multiple categories just based on the year you were hired in. When we break out just the basic members, these are the people that have years of service prior to 1990. And we look at it to go back in 2013, if you remember, there was a number of different scenarios that you had to elect based on your based on the retirement multiplier you wanted. Each one of those had a healthcare option to choose. Each one of those have what's called equated or non-equated at the time of retirement, and each one of those have 4 survivorship options. All right, so let's just illustrate how many different scenarios there are. We dive into MIP, and those have 3 categories of MIP with all of them having 4 different multipliers attached to those, with healthcare 2 options on each one of those, and 4 or equated, non-equated, and 4 survivorship options on that. When we dive into pension plus, there's 3 categories of that based on when they hired in, and multiple categories based on the elections they chose, survivorship options on that. And by the time you're done, nobody can figure out what's going on with this as far as what system they're in. And it seems like it consistently, what we run into is every time they end up, the legislators get together in Lansing, anytime there's an attempt to quote unquote fix the retirement system or make changes, they cannot change what anything from the based on the years of service you already have in. So what happens is anytime there's a change in the retirement system, it creates a new category of employee, and they can only change what had from this point forward. So if you remember back in 2013, that's the best example of that. In 2013, we had a time period where every employee was forced to decide what they wanted their multiplier to be, right, in their pension system. And all that said is to go, if there is a, at that time, ago, if you wanted to maintain your 1.5% multiplier, you had to pay more money. Or if you didn't want to pay more money, they're going to reduce your multiplier for every year going forward from that point. It's just an example of how they weren't able to change the retirement system or the benefits that you already had in. All it did is it created a new category of employee for that said, from this point forward, you elect to change it. So that's kind of where the background of why all of this came to be and why the system ends up being so complicated. So when we look at the initial, we dive into what's known as the for the brand new employees right now. We do a number of new hire presentations right now for incoming employees to try to educate them on what it is that they're going to be facing. They have a 75-day window when they hire in right now. So you look at the brand new employees under the Pension Plus. What they'll have to choose between a defined benefit or a defined contribution plan. And we won't dive too far into that right now, but just remember, if you hear defined benefit plan, think pension. If you hear defined contribution plan, think 401k. Right, so that's really the difference between those two plans, and which plan works best for each employee is very personalized. It's very it very much depends on what their goals are going forward, and trying to help an employee through that decision-making process. It's important to get them all of the information, and it's not always completely clear, especially for if it's a 22, 23-year-old brand new employee getting hired in, and say, okay, which plan do you want to collect benefits from when you're 60 years old? It's a difficult decision for them to make, and it's an irrevocable decision. So we try to help new employees go through that process and help them make the decision that fits their needs the best. Just to give you an overview, right now the employees under the defined contribution plan, the 401k we'll call it, automatically they contribute 3% and the employer matches 3%. And then as of 2017, anybody that has that 401k plan, the employer puts an additional 4% in. So now those employees that have that defined contribution, that 401k plan, they're putting in 3% and the employer's putting in 7%. The one thing to know is that if you have a statement, if you get a statement from the company called Voya, you may recognize that the Voya statement means that you have some level of component going into the state plan or the state 401k plan, right? So if you are putting any money into that, or if your employer's putting any money on your behalf, what happens is the plan has an automatic ratchet contribution or a ratcheting contribution to it, which just simply means that whatever you're putting in, every year you're going to put in an additional 1% automatically until finally you hit the time period where you're putting in 15% of your paycheck into that. The only way to opt out of that, if you wanted to, would be a negative consent letter that shows up in December. So if you looked at it in 1 year, maybe you didn't get a raise, but you're getting this Voya statement say, how come my paycheck went down? It's probably because you're getting those contributions that are automatically increasing, getting contributed to that Voya account. So just note that is something that a lot of people don't recognize is happening, but it is something that is important to know, and know that it's not that you got a decrease in your wages. It just means you're putting more away for retirement. So I don't know, Ryan, do we have any questions or anything like that yet? We can.
Someone just mentioned maybe can you just cover briefly the basic plan? Because I think we have someone that might be on the basic plan.
Yep. So if we look at the basic plan, I think I'll dive into that here in a
Yes,
second
no
once
problem.
we get to that.
Yep.
Yep. So as we start going through the different retirement options, and we'll dive into MIP and basic here. Just wanted to do a quick overview of the pension plus for anybody that may have employees in there. But areas that you'll be able to receive the income, we look at economists say you want somewhere between 70 to 90% of your last year's working income to kind of maintain that level of the same standard of living through retirement. Now, if we look at the general rule for public school employees, it's always dangerous to have a blanket recommendation for everybody. But I can tell you that in general, public school employees will fall on the lower end of that spectrum. They're going to fall closer to the 70%. And the reason is because it's if you looked at your paycheck and everything that's coming out of it right now, it's expensive to be a public school employee. There's a lot of deductions coming out of the majority of employees in the public school system. So in order to replace that take-home pay that you're making right now, it doesn't take 90% of your last year's working income. We're looking at closer to that 70% in order to make up that difference. Pension benefit, we estimate typically, depending on your years of service, is going to result in 35 to 45% of that 100% number will result in is what you'll end up getting from the state retirement system. Now, even though there are thousands of scenarios of how you could retire, the base calculation for your pension is the same for every single pension recipient. It's your total number of years of service, multiply that by your average salary, and multiply that by a multiplier, right? So those three components are consistent, but what goes into each one of those components is what changes based on the year you hired in and what options you elected. So if we look at pension qualifiers, this is the most common question that we'll often get is when is it that I can retire? Can I retire today, tomorrow, yesterday? I'm ready to go now. All of these different questions, all of these different scenarios, and people often overlook a number of the different qualifiers out there for what allows you to retire and collect your benefits. Many people are aware of their full retirement age or full retirement benefit, the point where they'll hit that. And for MIP employees, that's your 30 years of service. For your basic employees, that's going to be your age 55 with 30 years of service. But the other areas where you're eligible to qualify for benefits, the other one that people often don't recognize is what's known as early reduced. Early reduced says that I do not have my 30 years of service in yet, and you're between age 55 and 60. So if you're between age 55 and 60 with less than 30 years, many a times you can qualify for what's known as an early reduced benefit. And that simply says that for every year you retire prior to age 60, your pension benefit will be reduced by 6%. So as an example, if you retire on your 55th birthday and you have 20 years of service, because you retired 5 years prior to the age of 60, that results in a 30% reduction in your pension benefit. So that while that is a significant reduction, the one caveat to that is with that reduction in your pension, your health insurance does not receive a reduction. So you could retire if you are under that premium subsidy. If you qualify for health insurance and retirement, by retiring under early reduced, you can receive that permanently reduced pension benefit for the rest of your life, but also you will receive that health care benefit for the rest of your life. So for many individuals out there that may have, many of them may have their health care component to their retirement may be worth more to them than what the actual pension component is. They could take that pension component, reduce that, and turn that healthcare component on 5 years earlier than they otherwise would. Now, the other one is deferred. Deferred kind of works the opposite. Deferred says you are not eligible to take a benefit yet. So you said, but I'm still not going back to work. right? I'm done working and I'm not eligible to collect a benefit. That says is that at that point, you are then able to separate service. And at age 60, you'll get all of the benefits then that you already have contributed. So whatever your years of service, your final average salary, and that multiplier is, they'll calculate that benefit. And at age 60, you are then eligible to start drawing that benefit. Health insurance benefits may be reduced if based on the years of service you have been that allows you to qualify at age 60. However, I can tell you it doesn't disqualify you from health care. So depending on what your strategy is or what you plan on doing after you separate service from a public school, if you go to work for another employer, that may, at age 60, then you could automatically turn on that benefit and collect that healthcare benefit for whatever level of it you qualify for. It may be a reduced premium, though, that you get for that health insurance. And the last component there that a lot of people overlook is simply being age 60. So if you are in basic and you have 10 years of service at age 60, you are eligible to retire with full benefits. If you are an MIP and have 5 years of service at age 60, you're eligible to retire with full benefits. Now, both of those say that you have to be working up until your retirement age. So if you are one of those individuals that are looking at retiring with just 5 or 10 years of service at age 60, it's important to research what it is that it takes for you to qualify for those benefits. But I can tell you that it's not something where you have to hit that 30-year of service mark. We have a lot of people come up to us while doing presentations saying, well, they may be 61, 62 years old, and they say, oh, I got 2 more years till I hit my 30. Well, if you're already age 60, that is your qualifier, and the additional years of service that you are obtaining actually do not matter because all they are is adding years of service to your pension benefit. It does not help you at all in your qualifying for benefits. We'll go through a couple of these. Reciprocal Act of 1961. All that says is that if you work for the state or municipality, you may be eligible, depending on the employer, to use those years of service to be eligible for your state retirement benefits. And when I say eligibility, they do not add into your formula. So let's say you work for MDE for 5 years, and then you went to work for public schools for 25 years. Those 5 years get added into your retirement eligibility to bring you up to 30. However, your pension calculation will still be based on 25 years. So you can use years of service that you worked with the state for the eligibility purposes, but not for the calculation of your pension. All right, so here's where we'll dive into the differences in all 3 of the different systems here. So we have the formula on the left-hand side over there. That just shows you your average salary, years of service, and your multiplier. Now, the difference here, we'll start with the basic employees. Basic employees, when we look at the average salary is going to be calculated on your 60 highest consecutive months, right? So oftentimes your 60 highest consecutive months are your last 60 months, but not necessarily. So they're going to take 60 months or 5 years and find the 5-year window in your career where you earn the highest average salary, where you had earnings in those 60 months. And that's what they're going to use for the calculation of your pension. Now, if we look at the MIP in comparison, MIP says that they're going to use the 36 highest consecutive months or 3 years. So mathematically speaking, MIP traditionally is going to have a slightly higher final average salary because it's trying to average over a shorter period of time. So, however, it's not a significant difference necessarily. So we have a lot of people that go back and forth, did I make a mistake by taking basic MIP or one of the other options? I can tell you it's not a significant difference one way or the other. So just know that there really isn't a decision that you could make where you go, man, I really screwed up. Either way, both benefits are going to provide a phenomenal benefit in retirement. Now, when it comes to years of service, both of them both basic and MIP have a 30-year service requirement. The only difference is the age at which you you're eligible for retire with those 30 years of service. So with basic, you have to be 55 years old to be eligible to collect that pension benefit. Now, if you're 54, you can still technically separate from service if you have 30 years of service. You just can't collect the benefit until you're age 55. All right. So it is important to note that it doesn't mean you have to work up to your 55th birthday. You just cannot collect that benefit until you're 55. Similarly, if we look at MIP employees, they have the ability to retire as early as age 46. So we've seen a number of employees actually qualify with their 30 years of service by purchasing 5 years of service, and they're eligible to retire with full benefits, full health care at age 46, oftentimes allowing them to pursue a second career with quite a few years remaining in their working years. So that ends up being a phenomenal benefit, the ability to retire earlier than otherwise than other programs. That's really the strength of MIP. If we look at where the most value was added in paying that additional fee or that additional cost through your paycheck back when you had to make that election, if you were working prior to 1990 and say, okay, do I want to go to MIP or not? The ability to retire early is where the majority of that value was held. And likewise, we look at the multiplier. That's the same for basic or MIP. That's an election you made in 2013. And then the other difference there between basic and MIP is the annual raises that you receive in retirement. When we look at the annual raises in retirement, basic members get what's known as a 13th check. A 13th check simply says that if the retirement system has any money left over at the end of the year after they are done paying out all of the benefits, that money is then divided up among all of the basic members in the form of a 13th check. Now, I can tell you over the years, we haven't seen a lot of money get paid out in 13th checks. It's not some giant windfall that you receive. However, there have been some that are paid out. We often say, though, do not count on that money, especially for cost of living increases, right? So essentially plan on no raise. And if you end up getting that 13th check, it's a great bonus that year. Maybe it's enough to go out to dinner. Maybe it's enough to go on vacation. But either way, don't count on it, but just it's a great bonus if it comes in. MIP members, you get a 3% non-compounding increase every year in your pension. And all that means is 3% non-compounding simply says that whatever your first year's pension benefit is, they're going to take the calculation of what that gross dollar amount was year one, and then they're going to multiply that by 3%, and that's the exact dollar amount you're going to receive every year as a raise in your pension benefit. So by non-compounding, it simply means that the raise is going to be the exact same dollar amount every year for the rest of your life. So it is nice that you have a guaranteed raise in your pension, but do note that 3% non-compounding as the years go, it probably will not keep up with inflation because it's not compounding one year over the next. So as a ultimate percentage of your pension benefit, it'll slightly go down as a percentage, but the dollar amount will stay the same. And then for any Pension Plus employees out there, which is anybody hired after the year 2010, so you're 2010 or later, you're in some form of the Pension Plus, and that went back to the same calculation for final average salary that the basic members had with the 60 highest consecutive months. Now we put age 60 in there with 25 years of service because for Pension Plus, technically you don't need to have 25 years of service in, but there's a category of employee out there that actually that is Pension Plus and is eligible for the health care and retirement. And for those individuals to be eligible for that full premium subsidy, they need 25 years of service at age 60. But other than that, all Pension Plus members are eligible to draw that pension benefit at age 60 based on the years of service they have in. And their multiplier is at 1.5 then. There is no annual increase in the Pension Plus system. So there's a number of nuances and differences among all three systems, but like I said ago, any of the pension benefits, they end up being a phenomenal benefit that will pay you for the rest of your life. Hitting on a couple of the changes that we've seen, over the years. We've seen impact on purchasing years of service, increase in MIP contributions, creation of Pension Plus in 2010. The taxes on Michigan pensions that didn't used to get taxed, and then in 2010 it got taxed again, and now it doesn't get taxed again. So they keep going back and forth on that one. So note that your pension benefits now are state tax exempt, which is a nice benefit there. And then they continue to change the rules on working after retirement. We'll dive into that a little more here in a second. 2013 pension reform, you heard me talk about that a number of times. I'm not going to dive too far into it. I'll point out two options here. Option one was this back in 2013 is where you say, okay, I have elected to pay slightly more out of my paycheck in order to maintain that 1.5 multiplier in my pension formula for all of the years of service until I retire, right? And then the other popular option out there was option three. Option three said, I don't want to pay any more out of my pension benefit. So what I am going to do now is I'm going to maintain the same dollar amount I am paying. However, all the years of service I put in from that point forward now is at a 1.25 multiplier, not a 1.5. So it's a slight reduction in your pension benefit. However, in exchange for that, you didn't have to pay any more out of your paycheck. There was two other options there. Option two said that you could maintain the 1.5 for 30 years, then switch to the 1.25. Or option four simply said, you know what, I don't want to be part of this pension anymore. Just freeze my pension where it is and give me 4% contribution into a 401k. So option one and option three were the most popular. If you were an employee back in 2013 and looking at me and say, Josh, I have no idea what you're talking about right now, option three was the default, and that's probably the one that you ended up in then, if you didn't make any decisions. So looking at what it took in order to coming out of your paycheck, we'll just review this a little bit. However, you can't change it, and the amount you could look at your paycheck and see how much is currently coming out, but basic members is 4 and MIP members is 7. So when we look at how the formula works, total years of service times that average salary times the 1.5%, you end up with your option one benefit. Now, if you took that 1.25 multiplier, you're going to have what's known as a split benefit. So your pre-2013 years of service are multiplied by 1.5%. Your post-2013 years of service are multiplied by 1.25%. You multiply those out and add those two factors together, and then that's what's multiplied by your final average salary. It may look a little complicated. However, I can tell you the actual process for doing this. If you log into the MI account, they will have that estimate for you. Also, reach out to us, and we have a software program that will do all the calculations for you as well, and we offer that complimentary to all public school employees. So I'll give you an opportunity to fill that out, and we'll be happy to review that with you as well. The defined benefit system, if you chose that, you have 4% match going into a defined benefit system. And back in 2018, they upped that to 7. So you got a little raise there if that was the election you chose. If you did take one, defaulted to 1.25. Now, for every single person that has a pension benefit that's going to receive that guaranteed income for life, they have to choose a survivorship option at the time of retirement. So this is an option that once you elect it and you actually attain your retirement date, this option is set in stone. The only way to have this option changed is somebody has to die. You can't go back and go, oops, I chose the wrong one. So we look at who beneficiaries can be: spouse, child, parent, sibling, all of them can be beneficiaries. And we do this quick comparison here to show what is the cost of leaving a 100% survivorship benefit. So if you said, okay, I want to leave 100% of my pension to for the sake of example, we'll call it spouse as a beneficiary. So if I want to leave 100% of my benefit, how much is that going to cost versus if I leave 0 to my beneficiary or one of the other options? Now, the one thing I will tell you, if you decide to not leave anything to a beneficiary, they do have to sign off on that. So in order to avoid an awkward scenario there, make sure that you don't try to push one through on them, and they do have to sign off. But also the big piece there is that beneficiary health. There is no survivorship benefits on the health insurance if you choose the straight life option. Now, all the other options, 100%, 75, or 50, if you leave at least a portion of your pension to a spouse, they will receive 100% of the health insurance all the way for the rest of their life. So there's no reduction in the health care for the surviving spouse. It's only a reduction in the pension benefit based on the option you choose, as long as you do not choose that straight life option. The straight life, every benefit you receive dies with you. All right, when we compare the straight life to the 100% survivorship benefit, we look at the cost of doing so. It's $400 a month for this individual. That's a $40,000 employee that was making $40,000. We call it the honey, I love you option. I'm going to reduce my pension by $400 a month, $4,800 a year, $144,000 it cost me over the first 30 years of retirement in order to leave 100% survivorship benefit. So we're not saying that it's necessarily the wrong answer, but it is a decision that most people don't put more than 3 minutes of time into while they're clicking through it at the retirement as they're going through their pension options. And we do encourage everybody to take more time, dive into that, and really see what the value is in that survivorship benefit and which one works best for your scenario. So who's likely to take each of the three? We get the straight life. That's for somebody that obviously that's single, that doesn't have a beneficiary, or maybe their spouse already has guaranteed health insurance in retirement. For instance, if they are also a public school employee who has access to the health care in retirement, they are able to plan to possibly both take the straight life benefit because they don't need to keep the 100% health care. 100% or 75, those are ones if you have any life expectancy issues or didn't plan for a higher income option, those individuals might take 100% or 75. And 50% survivor is one that oftentimes we'll see it that they take the 50% survivorship benefit because it's the largest amount they can receive while both them and their spouse are alive, while still leaving the surviving spouse the full health care benefit. And then they can plan for the additional loss of income if something were to happen to them, oftentimes through privately funded insurance policy or something along those lines. There's a lot of different strategies that can be implemented in order to offset the survivor benefit.
Hey, Josh, can I ask a question there? Can you change that survivor beneficiary at any time during your career or as you're planning? Is obviously things change for different people?
Yep. So the survivor beneficiary cannot be changed unless the survivor beneficiary dies or the spouse gets divorced.
Okay.
So if the couple gets divorced or if the beneficiary dies, if the beneficiary passes away, then the option that's then presented to the retiree is they can bump up to that straight life option. So they essentially give themselves a raise because they don't have a beneficiary on their pension anymore. We do often note, though, make sure that if it's a good piece to put in your final documents that if something were to happen to your spouse, that you get to pop up to that straight life option, because the state retirement system's not out there reading the obituaries to find out if your beneficiary passed away, and they're not going to refund. They're not going to pay in the arrears. So if it's something you forget to notify them of, you could actually lose out on significant income that you otherwise would have received. New spousal benefit. If we look at how the new spousal benefit works, that's one where it says if you end up getting married in retirement, married or remarried, the way that they end up handling that is to say that you have between 179 days and 1 year. So really, it's the second half of your first year of marriage. You can then enroll them as the beneficiary. Now, the reason they do that is it prevents the deathbed marriages from passing on their pension. Right? So you got to at least be married for 179 days. And then you have to make that election in the next 180 days in order to be eligible. Then, so they cut the year in half. So the second half of the year, the latter 6 months of your first year of marriage, you can then add that spouse as a beneficiary on your retirement. So we go back to the economist graph here. We go, the other piece there is Social Security. I'm not going to dive too far into this for the sake of time right now, but 35 to 45% was your pension benefit. 10 to 15% is Social Security to make up that goal. If we look at significant Social Security ages, 62 is when you're eligible to start collecting it. There's an option out there called the equated option. We don't see too many people take that right now. However, all that says is that I am going to front load my pension. All right, so this does not change your Social Security benefit. All it says is that I'm going to take more money early on in my pension benefit, and then at the age of 62, I'm going to take a permanent reduction in my pension benefit to offset. Right, and then the reality of what that's meant to do is to say that if I retire at 55, right, I can front load my pension in order to make up that gap until I hit age 62. And then at age 62, I'm going to have a permanent reduction in my pension, but then Social Security fills in that gap so that it really just levels out your income from 55 for the rest of your life. Where if you did not take equated, you'd have the base benefit all the way through, and then at 62 you get a raise. Right? So it's either you try to take more of your pension up front to bridge that gap, or you find some other way to make up the difference between 55 and 62, and then at 62 you get a raise. So we don't see it as popular nowadays. A lot of times employees are even going back to work in retirement. But one popular strategy there is if you know anybody that has life expectancy issues, the one thing the equated option allows you to do is you can elect that equated option, take that larger dollar amount up front, and it does not affect your survivorship benefit. So if you look at it, if somebody says, you know what, I only have 5 years to live in retirement, I can take that larger dollar amount in those up until my age 62, and then when that retiree passes away, their beneficiary gets the full amount of the 100% survivor benefit as if they did not take the equated option. So it's a way to get more upfront and fund some of that benefit as well. Other significant ages regarding Social Security: 65 to 67, and then age 70. 62 is the earliest you can take it. 65 to 67, based on your birth date, is when your full Social Security age is, and age 70 is the latest you can take it. I'm not going to go through all of these tables here for full retirement age. You can check your Social Security website, log on to that, and they'll provide you what your full Social Security age is and what your projected benefit is. But I can tell you that a lot of public school employees that we work with end up taking Social Security at age 62 because oftentimes public school employees have the ability to retire younger than a lot of the general population. And the reason is because they have health insurance prior to 65. A lot of the private sector is not eligible, can't afford to retire until 65 because they have to privately fund their own health insurance until Medicare. So with the ability to get health insurance in retirement, public school employees have the ability to retire younger, and then by doing so, it says that if you're not working at age 62, then you can turn that Social Security benefit on at a reduced amount, but collect it for a larger number of years, which we find many people see is worth it. Last piece here, we go, what other areas can we dive into? To get it is your personal savings. That's your 403Bs, 401Ks, 401As, all of those different tax codes that the IRS says you can put money away and have a tax advantage to either now or later for saving money for retirement. 403B being the most popular one. This slide is still, I believe that's a year old right now for $24,500, but you can contribute the full $24,500 both in your 403B, 457, and 401A if you have it available. I can tell you between employer and employee contributions, public school employees can tax defer more money than just about any other profession out there because you qualify for just about every tax code that the IRS has. So there's a lot of options out there for you to put money away pre-tax, and which one's best for you oftentimes is going to be determinant on where your current tax bracket income is between you and possibly your spouse if you're filing jointly. Other areas you can receive income is working in retirement, and this is the last piece we're going to talk about, is the ability to retire and come back. This is rules that have changed in the last few years, and they continue to change. And what it says is that if you retire if you retire, start collecting your pension and decide, you know what, I don't think I want to, I think I still have more gas left in the tank and I want to go back to work for public schools. Now they allow retirees to come back and work after they've been sitting out for 6 months with no cap. So you can, if you retire and you're out of work for 6 months, 6 months later on the date, you can come back and make as much money as you want and collect your full pension and health insurance from the state retirement system. Now, if you are looking at wanting to come back prior to that 6 month window, what it says is that to be a full bona fide retirement, is what they call it, full bona fide separation of service, you have to be out of the building for at least 1 month. We say don't step foot in the school for at least 1 month, completely separate service, and then in the next 5 months, you can make up to $15,100 in that 5 month window. All right, so you can make $15,100 in that 5 month window following the 1 month that you can't do anything. Right, that fills up your 6 month window, and then after that full 6 month window is expired, you can then go back to, you can make as much money as you want. Now, you're not allowed to have any prearranged agreement prior to retirement to come back. You can't say, if I agree to retire right now, will you give me an employment contract that says I can come back to work in 6 months? That is not allowed. So you have to, once you separate service, you have to make that decision to come back come back out of retirement. That has to be made in retirement. It cannot be made prior to your retirement date. So just note that the conversations and the ideas of the concept of the old school way of term of double dipping on your pension, while the legislators made it legal, they still say you cannot have any prearranged agreements or to come back. So just note that that is something that you want to make a decision on in retirement, not while you're still working. But we look at the different components here, and we like to break down what the actual pre-retirement income looks like. So if we break down each one of these components for a $70,000 employee, right? So you have $7,000 that of the 70 that's going into your 403B. You have a piece coming out for your health care, which may be either premium or your HSA contributions. You have MIP contributions coming out of there. You have your state tax, your federal tax, your FICA tax, and $70,000 turns into a $31,500 take-home pay, right? So now if we look at $26,940 in take-home, it won't go backwards. I keep trying to go back, but either way, we'll compare it here in a second. He's clicking through instead of going back. But if we look at the post-retire, your pension benefit, we have your health care coming out, your federal income tax, and that's the only deductions coming out for a net income of $22,000 versus the $31,000 of your take-home pay while you were working full-time. And the only difference between working and not working for this individual would have been $9,000, right? So for this individual, if they're eligible for full retirement and health care, and they decide to go back to work next year, they're going back to work full-time for $9,000 because they could have collected $22,000 without even getting out of bed in the morning. So this is where that comparison really starts to make sense. And you may hear some colleagues say, man, if I go back to work next year, I'm losing money. And that's where this calculation really starts to swing in favor of retirement, especially if those individuals that you have that may be working up until 62 when you could collect Social Security. If you take that $22,000 retirement net income and add in a $24,000 Social Security benefit, now you're actually making more money in retirement than what you were making when you were working full time. And you're actually paying to go back to work, right? So it ends up favoring heavily to the retiree to leave earlier, not later, as far when it comes to just the financial the financial decision. Obviously, there's more decisions that go into that than just financially, but this is an example of an analysis that we'll run for public school employees. Anybody that wants one done, let us know. I'll be happy to put that together for you and see exactly how your net income would compare in retirement versus what it is right now, or what it would be the year prior to your retirement. And this is the biggest telltale on exactly when your retirement date should be. We have a lot of people that started doing the math and said, okay, well, if my net income difference between retiring and working is $9,000, right? And I go, I retire, and now if I came back to work after retirement and I made the same salary I was making, I go, now that I take the $9,000 difference and throw a $70,000 salary on top of it, I don't have in retirement, I no longer have the health care coming out. I don't have my MIP contributions coming out. All of a sudden, my take-home pay from the check that I was making, my previous check, my take-home pay actually goes up by retiring and going back to work at a different position with the public schools. My retirement income goes up as far as how much I get to take home, and I have a pension benefit coming in on the back end. So it ends up, the deductions go down and the pension benefit comes in, offsets it, and it's significantly higher take home by collecting that pension and working in retirement. So it ends up being a significant difference. And that's when we see more and more employees now take advantage of that idea, and then actually utilizing all of those tax deferred accounts that we talked about earlier to put away significant dollars into every year into a retirement account, so that at the time of retirement, of their, I guess, second retirement, they have a significant nest egg built up that they can use as what we like to call the fun money in retirement. So the combination of all these things, proper planning with public school employees, I can tell you, retirement can be very, very fruitful. You can we have a lot of clients that are buying secondary homes and everything else by properly managing these accounts and picking a retirement date that benefits them over the long run. So retirement application checklist. If you're one that's looking at, did I say, can I go over the income comparison again? Is that, I don't know how old that. I can go back here and hit the income comparison again. Is that for Tanya?
Oh no, I think he's okay now. Yeah, I was just gonna say.
Oh, good now. Okay. Sorry, I would not always.
Nope, you're good. There hasn't been too many questions coming in, so you've been, it's a lot of information, obviously, to digest. And
yep.
I know different people are on different plans at different points in their careers, and so for some it's much closer, and others it's just just something to keep in the back of their mind as they're keep plugging away. But I know we have Josh for a few more minutes yet. So again, the Q&A is open. Now is a great time to drop in some questions. He has a couple more items I know he wants to cover here yet. So just want to remind people to get your questions in before our time is done. So go ahead, Josh. Didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're good. There's just a retirement application checklist. If you're looking at retiring this year, just a couple items there you want to make sure you have. If you're taking anything other than the 100% survivorship benefit, you need a notarized pension election spousal waiver form that your spouse has to sign that and notarize it. You also need your marriage license and both of your birth certificates. Those are important. And I think for the most part, and then you'll have to review your health insurance options, make sure you know what you want there. If you have dependents that you plan on having on there, you also need their proof of dependency and oftentimes birth certificates. And then all of this is done online now, with the exception of the notarized form and obviously the documents you have to send in. So going on to that My Account is where you log on to get your all of the numbers that go into any pension calculation, but also is where you go on to apply for retirement, and you hit the submit button, and it's very anticlimactic, but at that point it's done. And once you hit submit and once you hit your effective retirement date, it is then locked in stone. So like I said, I'll be happy to take any questions right now. I know it's a lot of information. There's a lot to go over there, and we can do a very when we do any of these presentations with professional development or anything like that, we do a very abbreviated version of this for like a 10, 15-minute overview of just what the different systems are. But happy to provide any questions that anyone may have right now. Answer
Awesome.
any
It
questions.
looks like we have someone that has a pretty unique set of questions. Josh, would you suggest that they reach out to you to set up time to maybe connect or connect with somebody at ORS?
Yeah, I can put
Drop
my
your
email
email in
address
the
in here
chat.
quick.
Perfect. Otherwise, I am not seeing any questions in the Q&A. So perfect. Yep, Josh has his email in there. So if people have some, unique or specific things that you want to ask, um, privately, separately, you can reach out.
Mhm.
Josh will respond and get a hold of you. Otherwise, thank you everybody for joining us. I hope everybody has a excellent spring break, and maybe you're able to avoid some of that cold and white stuff we've still been seeing. We'll get this recap and slides over to you probably tomorrow, so check your email. Otherwise, have a great rest of the week and weekend. Thanks, Josh.
I appreciate it. Thanks, Ryan. Thank you, everybody. And like I said, if you have any questions, shoot me an email. I'll be happy to connect with you here real soon.
Awesome. Take care.